What if everything you were taught about the most famous structure on Earth is wrong? Not slightly wrong, not off by a few decades, but wrong by 20,000 years. That's not a clickbait question. That's the conclusion of a researcher who spent years studying the stone itself. Not the history books, not the Pharaoh records, not the academic consensus, just the stone. And what the stone told him contradicts almost everything we think we know. But here's what makes this story genuinely fascinating. The conventional explanation is also extraordinary. And before we tear it apart, you need to understand just how remarkable it actually is. Because the Great Pyramid of Giza doesn't need a conspiracy to be one of the most mind-bending achievements in the history of our species. It already is. Stand at the base of the Great Pyramid and the numbers stop making sense almost immediately. 2.3 million stone blocks, some of them weighing up to 80 tons, stacked to a height of 481 feet. A height that made it the tallest man-made structure on Earth for nearly 4,000 years. It held that record longer than the time that separates us from the Roman Empire. Its base covers 13 acres. The four sides are aligned to true north, true south, true east, and true west with an accuracy of 0.05 degrees. Modern engineers using GPS guided laser equipment struggle to match that margin. The ancient Egyptians hit it without either. The mortar used between the stones has been analyzed extensively. Its composition has been identified, but it cannot be replicated. We know what's in it. We don't know how they made it. And it has been standing largely intact for somewhere between 4,500 and, depending on who you ask, 25,000 years. That range tells you everything about where the debate currently lives. Let's start with the mainstream story, because it deserves to be taken seriously. The conventional timeline places the construction of the Great Pyramid at approximately 2560 BCE, during Egypt's Old Kingdom period, under the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. And this isn't a guess pulled from mythology. It's a conclusion built on layered, cross-referenced physical evidence. The Egyptians didn't build the Great Pyramid on their first attempt. They practiced. Over roughly 2 centuries, they constructed a sequence of increasingly ambitious structures, each one teaching them something the previous one couldn't. First came the step pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, essentially 6 stone platforms stacked on top of each other, built around 2670 BCE. It was radical for its time. It was also nowhere near what they would eventually achieve. Then came the bent pyramid. You can still visit it today. It starts at one angle and then visibly, awkwardly shifts partway up, almost certainly because the engineers realized mid-construction that their calculations were leading to structural failure. They corrected, they adapted, they survived the mistake. Then came the red pyramid, Egypt's first true smooth-sided pyramid, a genuine engineering breakthrough built by Khufu's father, Pharaoh Sneferu. And then, standing on 2 centuries of trial and catastrophic error and hard-won knowledge, Khufu's architects built the Great Pyramid. This progression matters. It's not the signature of an alien intervention or a lost super civilization. It's the signature of human beings learning through failure, generation by generation, until they got it right in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. But how did they physically do it? This is where popular imagination often fills the gap with mythology. Slaves, whips, brutal coercion. The archaeological evidence tells a different story entirely. In 1990, a horse stumbled near the Giza plateau and broke through the desert floor into an underground chamber. What was discovered beneath changed the narrative permanently. It was a workers' cemetery, and what it contained was unexpected. The people buried there showed evidence of medical treatment, healed bone fractures, amputated limbs that had been surgically attended to and survived. They were buried with care near the very monument they built. These were not disposable slaves. These were valued workers. Then in 2013, a discovery surfaced that remains one of the most extraordinary finds in Egyptology. Deep in a cave system near the Red Sea, archaeologists uncovered a collection of ancient papyri, the oldest ever found in Egypt. Among them was the diary of a man named Merer, an overseer who lived and worked during the construction of the Great Pyramid. His diary described, in granular, logistical detail, the movement of limestone blocks from the Tura quarry to the Giza plateau. He recorded schedules, delivery routes, the specific canals used to float the stones on Nile barges. It reads like a project manager's field notes, because that's exactly what it is. The Nile was the key logistical artery. Egypt's agricultural economy, fueled by the annual flood cycle, produced massive grain surpluses. Those surpluses fed a large, organized, rotating workforce. Recent estimates suggest around 20,000 workers at peak construction, cycling in and out in shifts. The state could sustain them. The infrastructure existed to supply them. This wasn't improvised. It was administered. For the question of how blocks were raised, the ramp theory has dominated for decades. But in 2018, a discovery at the Hatnub alabaster quarry in the eastern desert added a critical piece. Archaeologists uncovered an ancient ramp system unlike anything previously documented. It was steep, far steeper than conventional ramp models assumed possible, flanked by wooden posts set into grooves on either side. The system was designed for ropes. Organized teams could have used these ropes to haul enormous blocks up inclines that would have been impractical using a simple, straight ramp alone. The conventional story, in other words, is not a comfortable myth propped up by institutional inertia. It is a well-evidenced, physically supported, increasingly detailed account of human ingenuity operating at its absolute ceiling. So where does Alberto Danini come in? And why does his work refuse to simply disappear? Danini is an Italian researcher who approached the dating question from an entirely different angle. He wasn't reading hieroglyphics or excavating workers' villages. He was studying what time does to limestone. His method is called relative erosion comparison. The underlying principle is straightforward. Limestone weathers at a measurable rate when left exposed to the environment. Wind erosion, thermal cycling, moisture. They all leave progressively deeper marks over time. The longer a surface has been exposed, the more dramatic the deterioration. Around the Great Pyramid, Danini identified two distinct categories of limestone surface. First, sections that have been continuously exposed to the open air since the pyramid was built. Second, sections that had been buried, covered by sand, or otherwise protected, and were only recently revealed. By analyzing the difference in erosion depth and character between these two surface types, Danini argued that you could estimate how long the exposed stone has been weathering. His conclusion was that the erosion patterns he observed were inconsistent with a 4,500-year exposure timeline. The degree of weathering, by his calculations, pointed to somewhere between 20,000 and 25,000 years of exposure, which would place the pyramid's construction in the Paleolithic era, before Egyptian civilization, as we understand it, even existed. The mainstream scientific community responded with significant skepticism, and the criticisms are legitimate and serious. Erosion rates are not uniform. They are shaped by microclimate, wind direction, localized geology, and the unpredictable history of sand coverage over millennia. A surface that spent thousands of years buried under a dune and another 1,000 exposed will not erode in a simple linear pattern. Danini's method, critics argue, cannot adequately control for these variables. There is also the foundational archaeological problem. If an advanced civilization built the Great Pyramid 25,000 years ago, that civilization has left essentially no other trace. No cities, no refuse heaps, no tools, no burial sites, no art. Advanced construction at that scale does not happen without an entire supporting civilization, and that civilization should be visible in the geological record. So far, it is not. And yet, Danini is not entirely alone in the broader category of his argument. Geologist Robert Schoch made a similar erosion-based case for the Great Sphinx, arguing its weathering patterns suggested origins closer to 7,000 or even 10,000 BCE, when the region experienced significantly more rainfall. That theory also met fierce resistance. It also has never been fully put to rest. The debate between these camps often obscures a more honest acknowledgement. Erosion-based dating is genuinely difficult, and the margins of uncertainty in both directions are larger than either side tends to admit publicly. What we know for certain is this: the pyramid keeps revealing things. In 2016, a cosmic ray muon tomography scan, a technique borrowed from particle physics, detected a previously unknown void inside the Great Pyramid above the Grand Gallery, a space the size of a commercial aircraft. We do not know what is inside it. In 2023, archaeologists confirmed the existence of a hidden corridor near the pyramid's north face, roughly 9 meters long, previously unknown to modern science. We do not know where it leads. We have sequenced mammoth DNA. We have photographed black holes. We have landed robots on Mars, and we cannot tell you with certainty what is inside the most studied building in human history. The conventional explanation, Khufu, 2560 BCE, Old Kingdom engineering, remains the strongest evidenced account we have. The Mirror Papyrus, the Workers' Cemetery, the progressive pyramid building tradition across generations, these are not fabricated. They are documented. They are real. But the pyramid was not built to be fully understood. It was built to endure. And in that, it has succeeded beyond anything its builders could have imagined. Whether it is 4,500 years old or 25,000, the stone does not care what we believe. It was here long before this debate began. It will be here long after it ends. The only question worth sitting with is a simpler one. How much are we still willing to look? If this made you think, drop your take in the comments. Do the erosion patterns mean something mainstream archaeology is missing? Or is the conventional timeline airtight? I read everything. And subscribe if you want to keep going deeper, because we are just getting started.